lovely to see. Oh, there we go.
Bit
Oh,
of rock and roll to start.
I love a bit of rock and roll to start. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing launch tonight of the incredible Bondi to Manly Guidebook, the Definitive Guidebook by Tara Wells. My name is Caro Ryan. I run a website called LotsaFreshAir.com that is all about bushwalking and hiking, all the stuff that's talked about in this great book by Tara. Now, Tara has been writing about walking in Sydney for over 10 years. She is a travel journalist. She has published in magazines here in Australia, so in Great Walks magazine, and also in some international publications as well. But that's just a small part of all that she has. There is so much that she's going to share with us tonight. And speaking of sharing tonight, this is a little bit interactive. So there is an opportunity for comments and for feedback. So if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, you can just type in your comments there and we will get to them. We are actually having a proper question time at the end. But if there's something specific to what's going on, pop in a question and our wonderful producer working behind the scenes will maybe give us a tap on the shoulder and pop that question up for us. Now, there is very exciting. There is a book giveaway tonight. Is that right, Tara? Are you going to actually...
There is. So the great thing is, if you haven't already got your copy of the Bondi to Manly Walk Guidebook, we'll be giving one away. We'll be giving you the details of how you can win closer to the end of the session. So we're due to finish about 6:45. So we'll give you the details just before then of how you can win. Now, if you are one of those people who I feel so thankful for, if you've already bought a copy, or if you get your copy today, there's also a signed book plate that I can send you as well.
Because if this was a real in the flesh kind of a book launch, you'd be able to have a chat with the author, which we can do tonight, and you'd get a signed book. So we can get that with a book plate. How nice is that?
That's right. So the details for the signed book plate is on the Sydney Coast Walks website, and the address is on your screen right now. So all you need to do is show that you've bought the book, and then I can pop one in the post for you, personalised and signed for you. But the details for how to win is a bit later.
Excellent. 6:45. So wait for that one. Now, Tara, I'm very excited to jump right on in here. So I would love you if you wouldn't mind just starting off by telling me who's behind this book, because this is not a typical bushwalking or hiking publisher, is it? So let me know what's in the background.
So I approached New South Publishing, which is the publication arm of the University of New South Wales, to see if they were interested. They were kind and generous enough to say yes, despite the first COVID lockdown. And it was a pleasure to work with the team to bring the book to you today. And we'll be hearing from Harriet McEnany, who's the publisher at New South. And a few words. Thank you for joining us, Harriet. It was a pleasure to work with the team and to bring the book to shelves today. Just like to hear a few words from you too.
Thanks so much, Tara. I'm just so thrilled we were able to publish this book and work with you, and to celebrate its launch today, albeit from afar. And if only I lived within 5 kilometres of Bondi or Manly, I would have tried to walk the track today in your honour. But I wanted to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Dharawal country, which is to the south of Bondi, which is the land that I'm speaking from tonight, and to pay respects to elders past, present and future on this land that was never ceded. Tonight, Tara joins us from the land of the Darkinjung people, which is a bit north of Bondi, and Caro joins us from the land of the Gudanyara and Darang people to the west of Bondi, and we extend our respects to those elders past, present and future. So coming to this launch, I was reminded of a conversation that Tara and I had early on in the writing of the book, I think, where we talked about the newfound popularity of walking. And we also hoped that we wouldn't be publishing this book too late after the lockdown had finished and everyone had forgotten their new interest in walking. But luckily that seems like a very quaint idea now. But I think to take that thought further, this time at home has taught us, if anything, that the power of observing closely and walking around our surroundings is so powerful. And the Bondi to Manly walk certainly has a huge amount to offer here, not only in the impeccably clear guidance for telling you where to walk and how long it will take you to get there. Tara also takes the reader on a fascinating journey through the history of the coastline. Never will I simply walk by a lighthouse, a sandstone cliff, or an engraving site without appreciating their vast histories and future spaces. So a huge congrats from me and everyone at New South, Tara. The book is just magnificent, and we're so thrilled to have worked with you on it.
I think we're the only people in the world who are secretly going, don't let international borders open too early. But of course, we're all desperate just to go anywhere at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. But how wonderful that. Thanks, Harriet. Thank you. And it was so great to hear from New South publishers as well on that. So, yeah, this is a very, very exciting book. So, thinking about these places, Tara, and the book itself. So, the cover says Bondi to Manly. Can you just talk us through, like, where does the book cover? Where is it from and to? Because if you're not from Sydney, it might be a bit confusing.
So the Bondi to Manly Walk is an 80-kilometre trail that links two of Australia's most iconic beaches. And the way that we get there, it just hugs the coastline the entire way. So starting at Bondi and heading north, it takes you up the eastern seaboard of Sydney until you get to Watson's Bay and South Head, where you turn left and head up into the harbour, following up through to approach the rocks from Sydney Opera House, walk over the harbour bridge, and then head north through all the beautiful spaces of Sydney Harbour National Park until joining up with the Spit to Manly and ending around North Head, and then at the other iconic beach, which is Manly Beach.
Oh, man, massive, amazing. And that's 80 Ks. And you can do it in one foul swoop, or multiple days, or what's sort of the best way?
Yeah, the beauty of this walk is that you can do it in whichever way that you choose, depending not only of how much time you have available, but how active you are. So it would be fantastic if you could do it as, say, a 4 to 7 day in style hike. And that is, you walk to each night's accommodation, and then the next day you walk on from that point until eventually reaching the end. That would be fantastic. The other way that you can do it is just tackle a walk per weekend and do it over a series of weekends. Or you can choose from, I've tried to really simplify it and make it for anybody. So I've also broken it down into 12 feature walks that are just, really leisurely strolls that are the absolute highlights of Sydney's coast and harbour. So it's totally up to you how you walk it.
Oh, I love it. So many options. Now, I notice on the back here, it does say Sydney's best multi-day walk. Now, what makes you say that? That's a big call, by the way.
It is a big call. And I think if we talk about Sydney as what a Sydney-sider would say, that the Blue Mountains is not Sydney, because, of course, there's so many beautiful multi-day hikes in the Blue Mountains. But the Bondi to Manly really is the first multi-day walk that Sydney as a city has to offer. And as we continue on and appreciate more of the outdoors, the government is putting its support behind more and more connected walking trails. But this really is the first that's come to fruition. And in my opinion, it is the jewel of the harbour. It's the highlight of the coast. And it really gives you a taste of Sydney that gives you a really skewed perspective of Sydney that makes you think everybody lives on the harbour with water views. But just to be able to walk through it is gorgeous.
Yeah, amazing. So tell me, why did you write this book? I mean, your feet have walked Sydney for so many years and you know it so well, but what made you want to write this book?
The idea started a decade ago that when my husband and I got married, our honeymoon was actually walking from Manly to Bondi. And we being lifelong Sydney-siders who were already really familiar with many of these sections, just by doing it in all together, we thought this is amazing and it deserves to be known more widely. But we didn't quite know what to do with it at the time. That was a decade ago when nobody else was really connecting up the walks except for a few passionate volunteers. And then when the Bondi to Manly walk was announced a few years ago, I thought, well, that's it. That's something that I can share with a wider audience that we can get behind. And now it's signposted, and the guidebook will help with that too.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I read this pretty much in one sitting. Absolutely loved it. But it's very different. I'll say it's different to other kind of walking guidebooks, and it's different in a really good way. So how is it different?
I think most walking guidebooks are very, very focused on making sure you don't get lost. Now, of course, I also don't want you to get lost. So I've provided lots of detailed track notes. Turn left here, go straight ahead, go up that road. But it's not only about not getting lost. It's also about the stories along the way. So as well as where to go, I've broken it down into, I think there's about 80 stops along the way where I give you the stories of the place. It's like having a tour guide in your pocket who tells you the most interesting stories or the commentary of the places along the way. And of course, I'm a little bit interested in food, so I also include every single place that's worth stopping at to eat, and there's a lot. And also lots of accommodation ideas if you want to do an in style or create a weekend out of your walk.
Yeah, amazing. Covering all bases. Now, in terms of how it's different to read as a reader, there's something about so let's say if you go on a tour with a tour guide somewhere, you get that the interpretive stuff. They tell you, they explain things to you, they tell you stories, and that is it's like storytelling is what makes great interp. And there's something about the way you've approached and written the book that is all about story and all about interp. And how, like, your background as a journalist, how do you think that informed the way you wanted to write this as a storyteller, and as having worked with in travel and tourism, didn't you?
Absolutely. It totally determined what the book would be like, because so for many years Sydney Coast Walks was a tourism business. We guided hikes in national parks. Now, I wasn't the guide, I was the everything else person, but I was very much involved in turning the walks into a guided tour. And what makes a guided tour? Of course, our guests always wanted wonderful scenery, but that's not what makes a great day out. It's the stories that make it, that transform a simple walk into a memorable experience. And often that's what people were raving about years after joining us on a tour. They were saying, this is what we remember, other stories. So that's what I really wanted, was to kind of create a tour guide in your pocket. And I really feel like the stories that Sydney has to offer is what would transform, like anyone can do this walk and see the extraordinary scenery. But when you add that layer of story, it becomes an experience.
Amazing. Now, it's called, like, I keep holding up the book just to remind everyone, Bondi to Manly. But it's not just Bondi to Manly, because there's some optional extras here, and there's some places you stray from the official route, which kind of feels like you're getting insider info. How did that work, and why did you do that?
So I just felt, if you were going to walk 80 kilometres from Bondi to Manly, imagine not walking from Coogee to Bondi. It used to be a favourite of mine when I was lucky enough to live in that area. And those cliff sides between Coogee and Bondi are really a different perspective to the coastal areas further up on the walk. So I just snuck in that little bit extra. And also, even though the Bondi to Manly walk comes into Sydney, you kind of swing around the harbour side of the rocks and head north over the harbour bridge, but without actually going into Sydney itself. So I've created an extra Sydney City walk, which connects all of Sydney's green spaces. So you've got the Botanic Gardens and the Domain, Barangaroo. So to make sure that you get an experience of the city itself as well as the walk.
Now, I was just going to jump in there, because there's been a question from the fabulous Laura Waters, and it touches on some things you've mentioned there: cityscapes, cliffscapes, green spaces. And she's wondering to know if this trail, does it feel like an urban trail, or are there some bush tracks woven in? And what's the percentage?
Oh, percentage.
Oh,
I'm terrible at that, Laura, but thank you for your question. So I would call this a semi-urban walk. And one of the most beautifully surprising things about the walk is so much of it is footpath and built structures like esplanade and beachside. So you've got that, and then suddenly you turn a corner and you head into Sydney Harbour National Park, and that's scattered throughout the walk. And all of a sudden, you're on a bush track with twisting Angora trees arching over the top of you. If you're quiet, you can spot some brush turkeys. And then if you're really good at bird spotting and are very quiet, some 20 frog mouths and things like that. And you have no sense that you're in the city whatsoever. And you can go like that for a few kilometres and then pop out again next to harbourside mansions with beautiful views. So it really offers the best of both areas. I would call it semi-urban.
Semi-urban. Good answer. Good answer. And so did you walk the whole thing, like all 80 Ks?
Absolutely, I did. And to get those detours that you were talking about means not just walking that 80K, but if there was a Y intersection and the parts that I should go this way, but I was wondering what was down that way, I always walked both ways just to see which way was best. And I've put that into the notes. Look, if you take the high road, you're going to get this better view, even though the low road, they say go the low road. Or make sure you duck around the corner to go into Bronte Baths, and don't miss that highlight of Bronte Beach by just going down the beachfront. Things like that. I was making sure by walking every kilometre myself that the reader knew which detour to go down and which one to skip over.
Now, if you walked the whole length, the book also contains so much about recommendations for food. And not just food, coffee, good coffee, and booze, like pubs and stuff along the way. Did you try all of those too?
I always had to get myself home, so not the latter. But definitely it was very, very serious research that I had to try patisseries along the way.
Of course.
And what I suggest
research, right?
And in fact, there were so many that I might try a cafe in one spot, find another one, and get a little takeaway from them to eat it at another a picnic spot with a grassy expanse, and I could enjoy the view in private, but with the food from the earlier place. So and also that comes from knowing that you can have a good walk, but you want a good experience. And a good experience for me personally always involves really delicious food. And Sydney has that in spades. There are so many over water cafes as well. I can remember staying in a hotel and eating a dodgy hotel breakfast, getting out on the trail and going, here's a harbour. This cafe is over the water with gorgeous food. Why did I not eat here? And I had to stop and try it again.
Second breakfast, it's always a thing. Now let's keep moving on, because I want to dive into some of the other stuff that I think really makes this such a unique guidebook in its sense. And so I'm going to ask you, what surprised you the most about writing the book and the process?
So what surprised me the most was that before I even started to write, I had, of course, walked many of the sections multiple times before. So, for example, the Spit to Manly, I've walked that again and again. And any part of the walk, if you're lucky enough to live near any part of the walk, you've probably done the patch near you, especially in the 5 kilometre radius at the moment, a lot. And what I expected going into the walk was that I was merely joining up lovely sections to create a longer, nicer walk. But what the result was is that Sydney felt different to me when I walked the whole lot from beginning to end. I felt like I understood Sydney in a way that I had never understood it before. And it kind of brought Sydney to life in a way that just walking one of the sections, pretty as it was, didn't do it by itself.
So in terms of bringing to life, there's, for me, you made history alive with this book. and you've woven the threads of all the different types of Sydney's history, of its Aboriginal history, its non-Aboriginal history. And it's you've created this beautiful piece, but that how did you get that balance right? Because hey, it's a guidebook. It's meant to be a bit light, but there's some big stories there.
Well, I'm not a historian, and I don't know if I've got the balance right. That's up to the reader. But what I wanted to do was to find the common thread through all of these separate places in Sydney. And sometimes I was surprised at how the same story can be found in geographically separate locations. Something might have happened over there, was brought to here, but the people were from that area. And so sometimes it was a geographical thread that wound through the stories, but it was the layers of Sydney's history that I wanted to reveal the complexity. So, for example, guidebooks often say, here is the history of the place that you're walking through, which is often a post-colonial history. And then they have a little box that says, P.S. They've been Indigenous people of this land here for thousands of years. I didn't want that story to be separate. I needed to bring it together in a way that made sense, that we could see that Aboriginal history was continuing, that post-colonial history is defining, and that multicultural Australia, which is seen in so many of the places along the walk, is also part of the contribution of who we think of ourselves as today. Now, I'm non-Indigenous, so I did approach the local Aboriginal land councils to make sure not only was I getting the stories right, but that the stories were culturally appropriate in the way that I was telling them. So I do hope that I've been able to find that balance there.
Yeah, just as an example, are you able to share briefly the story about the one that stands out to me is the story about middens and how you approach that? You want to just share that?
That's a good example of how the same place can be seen differently depending who lives there, and how we can still see it today when we walk the path. So, for example, middens are the leftover remains of Aboriginal campsites, and you can often see remains of smaller middens on the walking path there, sun-bleached white shells at your broken shells at your feet. So a more savvy observer's probably seen that on a walk already. But if you take a place like Double Bay, that Europeans called Cockle Bay because of the abundance of shells there.
Oh, do you mean Darling Harbour? Sorry?
Did I say Darling Harbour? Sorry.
You said Double Bay. That's okay. Double Bay.
Yes, Double Bay has its own history. Double Bay, which now has Tumbalong Park, which is an Aboriginal reference. But the Europeans called Cockle Bay. And the reason it was called that was because of the abundance of shells. When Europeans came and they literally needed to put their buildings together with mortar, shells were a perfect way to do that. So that the middens of Sydney Harbour were stripped without permission in order to turn them into mortar of our buildings. And if you go into the rocks, I've pointed out a few of the buildings that you can still see today, like Reynolds Cottages in the rocks. And if you look closely, you can see the shells in the mortar of those buildings, and we can still see that today.
Amazing. And just, guys, that's an example of the depth of story in this. So it's not a guidebook that's just A to B. Yes, it has that about it, and yes, you won't get lost with it. And there's loads of food and accommodation and so much public transport information in there. But there is this depth of story as well. So but there's a lightness. It kind of felt like reading it, like you're reading it as you're walking at this lovely, gentle walking pace, like kind of a 3.5 k's an hour on flat ground. It kind of had that nice ambling feel to it. So I was wondering, we're getting a little short on time. We're going to be pushing towards questions pretty soon. I'm just trying to think what might be a good place for us to go. Well, actually, do you want to just read us that section on McKell Park? You've got it.
Sure.
We've got a a couple of
I've
minutes there.
chosen Mikel because it's at near Darling Point, which you may have caught a ferry there, but often there's no good reason to go there. It's a lovely park. It's got beautiful views over the harbour and Clark Island. But it's an example of how a story can really add to the place. So Mikel Park. Real estate intrigue and dodgy development deals between political mates started here. In 1828, merchant Arthur Kemmis applied for a land grant on the point between Rushcutters Bay and Double Bay. He wanted to start a whaling business, but was refused. He was told it's specially reserved for public purposes. 4 years later, the colonial treasurer, a good mate of the acting governor, was miraculously reserved the same site. Kemmis got cranky. There was a hoo-ha. The land was granted to someone else. No matter, the treasurer simply bought it from him for 50% more than the grant awardee had paid 6 weeks earlier. The treasurer, the Honourable Campbell Drummond Riddell, named his newly built property after his mate, the acting governor, Colonel Lindsay. Now a National Trust House Museum, Lindsay was subdivided in 1841. What is today Mikel Park went through another emblematically Sydney evolution. First owner builds a cottage, the footings of which have been preserved. Next owner makes it grander. Another knocks it down to rebuild something grander still. The buildings, which were conveniently close to Woolloomooloo's Royal Australian Navy base, were used as a naval hospital during World War II. Post-war, it was an extension to the Crown Street Women's Hospital until becoming a park in 1983. At last, it is specially reserved for public purposes.
Nice. And it's one of those little hidden spots too. It's not kind of the place most people have been, really, is it?
Correct. Yep. Another little gem.
A little gem. Speaking of little gem, while everyone's gathering your questions, we're going to come to those in 1 minute's time. What is your best tip? What do you reckon the best tip? Let's say, and there's different types of people. What about best tip for just everyday walkers, people who just want to do the walk?
Everyday walkers, I have got a really detailed distance summary. So you can either choose from one of the highlighted sections that I've already said is one of the best sections and just tick them off over a series of days that you've got free. Or you can extend yourself depending on your fitness level by checking out the distance summary. I would always say if you're going in summer, pack your cozies. There are so many beautiful spots to swim along the way that are away from the main beaches. You could have a beach like Castle Rock Beach all to yourself. And of course, take your own coffee mug. Did I mention the food? Be prepared for a picnic or a beautiful lunch, extended lunch spot.
Amazing. And what I know that in case anyone is wondering, there are packing tips. She gives some great packing tips in the book. And there is a terrain profile, so you can see where the big hills are as well. So thinking of hills, what kind of fitness do you need for this? Who's this walk suited to?
I would say it's suited to most people. So you don't need to be a serious bushwalker or have been in training in order to do it. That said, if you are training for Everest, why don't you just do it? Get as many kilometres under your belt in one day. There are plenty of up and overhead lands to get you going as well. But there's also lots of flat, gentle bits. The other good thing to know is it's so well connected with public transport that there's always an out. So plan a lovely ferry trip to come back to the city, or even a nearby bus route if you need to pull out earlier than what you thought you might have. So that because of that, it makes it good not only for older people or people who are more grateful for their knees than other people, but also to families as well with younger children. So yeah, it's appropriate for just about anyone.
Amazing. That's great. Now, how about we see if there's any questions here? Okay, so Tamara would like to know, what would you recommend the best time of the year to undertake the Bondi
the terrific thing about Sydney is its relatively mild climate, which means it's a year-round walk. and there are different advantages for each time of year that you walk. So, for example, if you went in winter, there's whale watching places along the way. The water is sublimely aquamarine, just a bit too cold to go in. And the wildflowers tend to come out in late winter as well. Spring, what's not to love about spring and autumn? They're really, I would say, the two best times for walking, a little bit cool in the mornings, for example. Autumn, you've still got the advantage that the ocean temperature is lovely. And summer, I would plan for less kilometres in a day just to make up for the hotter days. But then instead, pack your swimming costume as well and plan to stop and swim before
Ice cream?
keep walking. Oh, ice cream, gelato, whatever you fancy, it's there.
It's kind of like a foodie walk. If you wanted to make it a foodie walk, you could. And
Yes.
you mentioned the multicultural thing about Double Bay in different places. So other types of food that make up Sydney's history, you point out too. Now, the fabulous Shauna asks, which are the best sections for family walks?
Shauna, that's a great question. There's one, but I would say it depends on the family, because I really believe that what your usual level of expectation for your kids to walk determines that. But most sections are appropriate because there are so many playgrounds. So you're nearly walking, if it's not a beach that you can lure your kids to, it's the ferry trip home and it's the playgrounds in between. So the Spit to Manly is a really good, and the Heritage Foreshore Walk, not only are they two of my favourite sections because they're in the national park, but they're achievable for kids. And then even just walking from Cremorne to Mossman Bay, I did that with my very young kids. And there's a playground at each end and a ferry trip at each end, and they were happy as
happy as Larry. That sounds like that might even make Megan happy, because she asked the question, is the walk suitable for kids? Is there a specific section you would recommend? And that you've called out a few sections there, which is great. And now, do we have any other? Oh, a few people are saying this is a great gift. It is absolutely a great gift. Can I just say Father's Day is this Sunday? And for people moving to Sydney, for Sydney siders, maybe you know someone who lives their 5K is on the track. It would be a great thing to maybe just sort of send them online, and they can do it in their little section then, as we open up a bit more, spread their wings. Judy would like to know where you can order it.
Okay, so if you're living somewhere that's not in lockdown, good on you. Please go to your local independent bookstore and they should have it in. If you are living somewhere where there's lockdown, many local bookstores have stocked it and they'll do click and collect for you, or you can buy from any of the online retailers. I'd support Australian owned and with low delivery costs. So it's available in all good bookstores.
And they steak knives with that.
No steak knives, but personalised book plate if you'd like.
Exactly, personalised book plates. And Rochelle would like to know, what about without kids? Is there an adult version staying at maybe some nice accommodation along the way, a few of those nice wine bars, that kind of thing?
Rochelle, maybe. Yes, family friendly. We've covered that, but Rochelle, what you want to know is that it is the perfect escape for grown-ups, so that especially if you live close to Sydney, you haven't had to travel very far to have an escape. And the way I would make it different for a kid-free walk is there's literally, as well as live theatre at the Sydney Opera House or any of the
ensemble theatre.
The Walsh Bay. The ensemble theatre is literally right on the walking track. So I would plan an evening show. I would plan a destination fine dining for your evening, relaxation. And there's lovely boutique accommodation as well along the way that kind of gives you that same feeling of escape, that you don't have to do the walk and then be in the centre of everything. You can do the walk and still feel away from things. There's lots of accommodation that's appropriate for all types.
Nice. And Joanne is wanting to know, what is the best end to start at? North to south or south to north?
Yeah, controversial, Joanne, but I've decided to go with Bondi to Manly. So if you can do mental gymnastics, you can easily read the book back to front and equally not get lost. But because it was the Bondi to Manly, we decided to go that way. One of the reasons I like going that way is when you end at Manly, it feels more triumphant, because because you kind of arrive at Manly Beach, and then of course you just go across the Corso and get the ferry back to the center of the city. And when you get that final ferry back, for someone like me who is not like, is that north or is that north? But I suddenly knew every single place that I saw from the ferry because I had walked every single step. So that ferry trip back from Manly after you've walked the length of from Bondi to Manly is so satisfying. And I would say that just gives it the slight advantage over walking the other direction.
And like you said, it made sense of Sydney for you. Like Sydney made sense when you'd walked it, and you'd get to do that on the ferry back. Elisa would like to know, how many hours or Ks would you allow walking in a day to enjoy the sights? And is it easy to arrange accommodation as you go?
Okay, how many would you allow in a day? So because it's semi-urban, you can cover quite a lot of ground quite quickly. So as I say in the book, I've put in the distance summary, not only the kilometres, but if you walk the average walking pace, how long that would take you. So, 4 hours. But because there are so many sites, thank you, Caro. Because there are so many beautiful sites, I would be thinking about what you want to get out of your walking day. Do you just want to get to the destination and then stop and relax? Or do you want to linger over lunch and coffee and, did I say afternoon tea, and a swim? And so that's very same 4-hour walk could end up being a 7 to 8 hour walk if you let it be that way. But you can, if you want, get a lot of kilometres under your belt in one day.
Now, Merrin has asked a good question here, which is luggage transfers.
Yes. So thank you, Merrin. That relies on tour operators twigging that luggage transfers would be a really good thing, and nobody has twigged yet. So,
are there any tour operators in the room tonight?
No, there's not. One day there'll be a second edition of this guidebook, and I'll say, great news, there are luggage transfers available, but right now there's not. So in the book, I do go into detail about how you can do the walk as a multi-day in style hike, carrying only a day pack, which is what I did, only a day pack, because you do not want a big pack on your back. So you stay somewhere in a hotel that's got sheets and towels and shampoo, and then you wear one outfit, which is your stinky walking outfit, and then you have a nice fold-up small going out outfit for the evening. When you get to your hotel room, wash the stinky clothes, ready, which will be dry by the next morning. Put on your glamorous, I'm not a walker, I'm a city-faring person. And that's how you can do it with a day pack until someone works out that luggage transfers would be a great thing to offer.
I was also just going to pick up on something. The person who asked about, doing it as an adult and staying in accommodation, don't feel like it's all high-end accommodation. Like, depending on whatever your budget is, you could choose to do it as a backpacker. Now, in certain parts of Sydney, it's a bit trickier to get the cheaper accommodation, but you have options for that, don't you, Tara?
So I actually explain, if you really want to stick to a certain budget in your accommodation, you can't stay. It's hard to do in style at any level, low or high. If you want to mix up your budget throughout each night, then you can do that. But if you really want to do hostel or Airbnb, which is a cheaper room, then I do suggest there are certain locations along the way that you can stay in for more than one night. So you get a sense of that in style, but you might spend a few nights at Bondi or King's Cross or the Rocks and Manly rather than every single night being trackside.
Yeah, got it. Now, I'm going to put my question in, if I can, for you next, because we're going to talk about the giveaway in 1 minute's time. What's next for you? Like, so, I mean, you finished one book. That's a massive achievement. Well done. And as you can see, guys, like it's not a little thin thing. It's like, it's great, but light enough to carry in just your day pack for the full length of the walk. What's next for you?
I am passionate about the coast, and I still deeply love Sydney. So I'm working on a children's fictional novel that's set in the Australian bush because I really want to bring that love of the bush to the next generation. And I'm really not finished talking about Sydney, its coast, its harbour, and its walking tracks. So I hope to bring more books along the same vein or to talk about it in a deeper way. So I'll hopefully have more for you later.
That's very exciting. Now, it is now 6:45.
So we should tell you how you can win.
Yes.
Okay. So if you have already bought a book or you buy the Bondi to Manly book, that was about the book plates. If you haven't bought it and you really like a copy, either for yourself or to give away, please go to sydneycoastbooks.com.au/win. There's a little form for you to fill out where you just put in your name and email. We're going to draw that at 8 o'clock tonight so that you will know very quickly whether you've won a copy of the book for yourself. So please, I encourage you to enter there. That's very straightforward, and it will be drawn at 8. It will be announcing the winner at 8 o'clock tonight on social media. Now, if you have already bought the book or you would like to buy it today, you can get that personalised book plate. So what that is, it's I sign it in the way that you'd like and send it off to you in the mail. It's complimentary. Then stick it in the book. That's in lieu of us standing next to each other in person and having a book signing. But that's a way that I'd like to thank you for supporting the book. So there's two bits of homework that you have to do tonight. Enter to win by 8 and to get a personalised book plate if you have already purchased your copy.
Amazing. Well, it's a great comment there from Linda. She's always loved doing her walks in the bush, but you've inspired her to do this one. Absolutely. And I encourage you to do it. Read the book before and then take it with you, because to have these stories, like the example she gave of the middens, whilst you're out there and to see what she's talking about, just absolutely comes alive. But even if you are in lockdown or you can't get to Sydney at the moment, do you know, it actually felt, as I was reading it, it felt like I was doing one of those virtual reality kind of walks. Like I felt like I could picture it in my mind. I kept flipping back to the map and going, oh, yeah, okay, I know it. Yeah, okay. Or even in places I hadn't been, I'm like, and the way you brought it alive, it was fabulous. So
thank you.
Anytime. I want to encourage everyone. Like Tara and I, we're happy to hang around for a little bit more and answer some more questions. But I got to say that this book, and I was thinking of the words and what the book made me feel like, and it is, what you've done is it's all about connectedness and story and the importance of place, to whether you be Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, an immigrant, you brought place alive. It's about belonging, and it's about journey as well. So I kind of want to sit down and read it again. So if anyone does have any more questions, please feel free to drop them there in the comments. And as she said, jump into that link Oh, here's some other questions. Do you have downloadable maps from Tamara?
So, Tamara, the book is available as a book that you've seen. It's also available as an ebook. So that's probably the best way. If you prefer to look at it on a device, then I would go for the ebook version instead. That's also available at booksellers that are good at online things.
Excellent, excellent. Joanne, can't wait to read it. Yes.
Thank you.
Big thumbs up from me. Lauren, giving you some congratulations there. Very nice. Cosmo's walking tour. He reckons it's, I don't know if it's Cosmos or Cosmos. So Cosmos, I think. It says sounds great. Maybe you want to get into some luggage transfers, Cosmos. Susan says congratulations. Thanks, Susan. And Rochelle, thanks, Tamara. Looking forward to poring over the book. Yes, poring over it. It is that kind of a read. It really is. And have we missed any more questions? Dave Bowman says, congratulations, Tara.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Any other questions? That if we have missed your question, please just drop it in again, and because it might, then just let it all float back up to the top again. Something to look forward to after lockdown. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it does need a little bit of prep and planning, so it's good to get onto it now, and then the second we know we're out of lockdown, we're there.
Can I just ask you about the photo on the cover? Because the photo, and we actually didn't mention there are photos. There are colour photos in the book as well. Shauna also cannot wait to do the whole thing over a few days, or I missed that last end of that comment. That's right. Kaz has done half of it. A few days, something to look forward to, Shauna. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, producer in the background, by the way. He's doing an excellent job. Kaz has done half the walk, got the book from our local bookshop. Oh, Turning Page in Springwood. Love Turning Page. Great local book, independent local booksellers. Very nice.
Jules, good question, Jules. Do you mark where the toilets are? So the toilets are marked on the map, yes. So there's an overview map that just shows you where the walk goes generally. And then I break the walk down section by section. And in that, and Cara's giving you an example of that now, I do mark the toilets because this is very much frequently there are toilets along the way, but that's when you're in busier beachside areas. And sometimes when you go into the national park areas, they might become a bit more scarce. So this way I've marked the toilets, you know what you're planning. Yes.
Nice. Kate's walked some of this before. Scenery it is gorgeous. Much more to explore. Looking forward to learning about the history and tips from the book. Absolutely. Thanks, Kate. There's an idea, Lauren. Says, could Uber do luggage transfers? I reckon Uber could probably do. That's a really good thought.
Good luck. Yes.
Yes. Paula, can't wait to do the walk. Thanks for the live chat. And is there anything else you'd like to say, Tara? I mean, I've got a few other questions. What would be your favourite best hidden gem, do you reckon?
A hidden gem, I think, well, my favourite parts are anywhere that's in Sydney Harbour National Park. And Sydney Harbour National Park is divided up into sections throughout. So you leave it, re-enter it, leave it, re-enter it. And you go from a Bondi Beach, for example, which is crazy and you can barely get a square metre of sand to yourself, into the national park, and there's beaches because they're walking accessible only. The only people who can get there either have a boat and they've come there by boat or have walked there. So you can have a beach to yourself, which is an extraordinary thing in Sydney. So somewhere like Castle Rock Beach is a favourite, and it feels serene. And Collins Beach, although it can get busy on the weekends, there are lots of little secret beaches along the way that you can feel that you own yourself.
Speaking of secret beaches, there's some nudie beaches too, if that's your jam.
Yes. So at the moment, the walking track goes past Lady Bay at Watson's Bay. But you could, give a cheerful wave to the people far below, or avert your eyes, whatever your preference is.
Or join them if that's your jam.
Or join them. And soon out at Middlehead, there's actually 2 closed optional beaches, but at the moment the walking track does not go near them. And National Parks is changing the walking track at Middlehead, so you will go closer to them, which will make them more convenient to get to if that's what you'd like to do. Yeah, but it's surprising how many there are along this particular part of Sydney's coast.
And that you'd never knew existed. And Janine says, well done. Looking forward to her book delivery. And does that mean if you've ordered, you're going to get your book plate? Now, do you want to, is our wonderful producer able to put that link up again about the book plates? Or there was some, yeah, it is. That's amazing. Yes. So can you send me one, Tara, by the way? So I can put it in the front.
How dreadful that I haven't sent you one. Yes, I can send you one. Yes, I can.
That's Caro.
Good.
Now, tell me about favourite sections. Do you have a favourite section of the walk? Like, if you could go back tomorrow, if you could go back tomorrow and do a section you had a whole day, where would you go if you had one day?
Well, actually, this is not my favourite section, but it is the bit that I'm planning to do next, and that is when I did the walk to research the writing of the book. It was last winter, like late winter, early spring, so nearly a year ago. I can't tell you how divine the water looked, but it was freezing and I did not want to put my toe in. So I really want to do it again in summer, but this time I'm planning to stop frequently. So I think I might do like the Hermitage foreshore section again and stop at each of the 5 beaches in this very short space of time just to get in the water.
That's the section quite near the beginning that's got some well-known Sydney hospitality millionaire living there. Yes, and I would know that because at the Hermitage, on the Hermitage Walk, yes, which I learned from reading the book. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You're just going to have to buy the book. And like I said, I asked you about the Midden story because I thought that was quite great. Is there another story that stands out to you, a piece that you researched, you had to actually do a bit of a deep dive in that is a bit of your favourite story?
Oh dear, which one?
I could ask you some.
Are you thinking? Yes. Are you thinking Benelong?
Oh, I do like that. Oh, yes, and or Bottle and Glass, or I've got a list of them. Or the importance of rubber suspenders.
Yes. Oh, except I always.
No, you pick one that rings true for you.
So Rose Bay, I found Rose Bay really interesting because it's another one of those places where the story adds more than if you just walk it alone. If you walk it, you go, that's a lovely protected harbour and lots of nice boats if you're one of those people who has a boat. But the story I found really revealing. So before international air travel was just starting, they literally did not have any runways for planes to take off and land at. So seaplanes, just for a moment in time, were more popular than what the plane that we know today. So Rose Bay became Australia's second international airport, and it's where the kangaroo route between, Sydney and London, but it wasn't London then, Sydney and the UK took off from Tish. From Rose Bay is where the international mail came. And also there's a famous restaurant there called Catalina's, which I didn't know the story of the Catalina seaplanes bringing back prisoners of war from World War II, being greeted by like 50,000 spectators who were supporting the returned prisoners of war. I just found stories like that made me look at Sydney in a whole new way.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely. Well, guys, it's now just about to turn 7 o'clock, and one last call for any questions. Other than that, Oh, Kim Archibald says she can't wait for the delivery of the book. She's bought one for her son's family as well. Oh, thanks,
That's
Kim.
right. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, I would buy this book for, well, so many people, for walkers of all different levels, because it is a track that has options and variety, and you go into, you talk about whether it's easy or hard or moderate, that kind of thing. You can see the terrain profile. Are there sections actually that are wheelchair friendly?
Very short sections. I haven't gone into detail with that. What I have said is that for people who have very little kids and are thinking about strollers or bikes, there's definitely sections, but you would not want to try and do the whole Bondi to Manly walk with a stroller or a bicycle or a wheelchair, because there are lots of steps. Even though they're little steps, we know that can be a barrier if you have wheels. So yeah,
But there's all
you
those
do need
beach
some mobility.
esplanades and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yes.
nice. Yeah,
Yes.
and you could link sections. And
Yes.
Leap and Leroy, love your name, Leap and Leroy. Says, great work, Tara. Can't wait to get my hands on a copy.
Well, Leroy, I happen to know that you're in New Zealand, and the great news is that there are some Australian booksellers who do international shipping to New Zealand. So no excuse, Leon.
Amazing. Well, look, I'm encouraged and really grateful for New South Publishing that this is a university publisher, that they have got on board and recognized, the importance of moving our bodies in the outdoors, of walking, but also the importance of the depth of story and connectedness and journey that goes with that. So I'm looking forward to more of this type of thing from New South, and to your next book, which will be a children's book.
Well, will it be the next one? We'll have to wait and see, because
Well,
I do have more to talk about the coast as well. So
yes,
many an idea coming your way.
absolutely. Any final words, Tara?
The Bondi to Manly walk, it was an absolute pleasure to walk it. It was a pleasure to research it, but now the great pleasure is in sharing it. So I really hope that you can get out there, enjoy the walk, and I hope that the book helps turn that beautiful walk into a memorable experience for you. Thank you.